Most of the Philippines business sector and local government is still playing the old game. They're obsessing about Metro Manila traffic and BPO expansions and the next commercial high-rise. Many of them seem to completely be blind to the fact that the biggest institutional money in the world is quietly redrawing the map of the global economy. I'm talking about billions of dollars in supply chain capital that's fleeing China. The terrifying part isn't that we're missing this opportunity. It's more about the ASEAN neighbors who are ruthlessly stealing our economic future. But while the public and policymakers are distracted, a few of the smartest conglomerates in the country are quietly executing a massive infrastructure play to take it back. For the last 30 years, the world had one main factory, China. It built ports, highways, power plants, and industrial zones at insane speed. And it turned itself into a place where phones, fridges, motorbikes, pretty much everything got made. And that's how they moved hundreds of millions into the middle class. Not by answering calls, but by making things the world actually buys. China was the fastest growing economy, and by 2010, China had become the second largest economy in the world, right behind the US. For many American companies, this was a quiet threat, as China was known for learning everything about the manufacturing process and copying their intellectual properties. Then in 2018, Donald Trump launched a trade war. Suddenly, hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese exports were hit with super high tariffs. Beijing hit back and turned trade into a weapon, and global boardrooms around the world woke up to this financial nightmare. A single political decision in the US-China trade war could instantly wipe out your profit margin. Suddenly, keeping all of your factories in China wasn't a very good business strategy, but becoming a liability. And that's when the term China plus one stopped being a buzzword and became a survival strategy. Keep China, but find at least one more place to build. And it didn't stop at tariffs. Now it's tech bans, chip wars, rare earth. The whole global supply chain is now sitting on a geopolitical fault line. Now, because of this geopolitical tension that's rising between the US and China, the whole supply chain is reshuffling in Asia. Now, the question is, which ASEAN country is going to take advantage of this? ASEAN saw an opening and went on offense. Vietnam moved first. It turned itself into China's favorite backup factory, cranking out electronics, textile, and light manufacturing. US imports from Vietnam surged during this time, and Chinese manufacturers even set up shop there just to keep selling to America. Thailand branded itself as the Detroit of Asia, rolling out the red carpet for EV makers and battery companies. And Chinese car and battery brands are literally building plants there just so their products don't get hit by US tariffs. Malaysia doubled down on chips and high tech. It's now one of the world's go-to hubs for semiconductor packaging and electronics, and they're plugged straight into the global tech supply chain. Indonesia went the resource route. Nickel, EV batteries, heavy industry. They used its minerals and massive population to their advantage. This capital flight is going to happen with or without us. We have a choice. We can stay addicted to our call centers and our remittances and watch as Vietnam and Thailand build generational and industrial wealth. Or we can finally prove that we're a serious manufacturing player. But right now, we're losing. Our manufacturing sector has shrunk to barely 16% of our economy, way below Vietnam and Thailand, where it's closer to a quarter. That means fewer plants, fewer supply chains, fewer chances to move from call centers to factory floors. And then there's the infrastructure and logistics, the traffic you sit in, the port congestion, the delayed shipments. Now imagine looking at it as a global CEO, deciding on where to put a billion peso factory. Do you really gamble on a country where your containers might sit in a port, where your workers spend 3 hours a day in traffic? On top of that, power. The Philippines has some of the most expensive industrial electricity in ASEAN. A factory in Luzon can be paying almost double what the same plant would be paying in Vietnam or Malaysia. If you're running a power-hungry production line, that's not a small detail. That's life or death for your profit margins. And with red tape, policy flip-flops, and all this uncertainty, it's not hard to see why a lot of Chinese and global manufacturing investments went to our neighbors instead of us. We might be behind our neighbors, but the game isn't over. The Philippines isn't starting from zero. We already build electronics, components, and real products that plug into the global supply chain, just not at the scale we should. The opportunity now isn't to copy Vietnam overnight. It's to pick our lanes and build a few places in this country where power, infrastructure, talent, and community can actually all work together. Here's the most frustrating part. We actually had a 19-year head start on Vietnam. We had the exact same playbook. We carved out special economic zones and offered massive tax breaks just to plug us into the global supply chain. The same way China built special zones like Shenzhen and our neighbors built their own industrial corridors, we built our own version of special economic zones too. We already knew the Philippines was messy for doing business. Too much red tape, weak infrastructure, and bad politics. Back in the 1970s under Marcos, the Philippines was hungry for dollars and jobs. Instead of slowly building local industries from scratch, the government tried an industrial shortcut. Let multinationals bring in capital, technology, and know-how and plug us straight into the global supply chains. So in 1972, they created the Export Processing Zone Authority and built the Bataan Export Processing Zone, our first real export zone. Then in 1995, it was all formalized under the new name, the Philippines Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA. Same idea, but bigger ambition. Almost any part of the country could become a special economic zone if the government approved it. Even some buildings in Makati, BGC, Ortigas, Cebu, and Davao. So today we have over 400 of these PEZA zones on paper. So why are we still exporting our best talent just to keep our economy afloat? Here's the reality. A huge chunk of those industrial parks are really just single office buildings in Manila or Cebu with a PEZA plaque. Then you got the ghost zones, land in some far-flung province declared as PEZA zone, but with no reliable power, no nearby ports, no real roads, just fenced-off land waiting for factories that never come. Declaring a zone is easy. Drawing lines on a map is easy. But building a real ecosystem with power, ports, roads, housing, schools, suppliers, and people all stitched together, that's a completely different level. And that's why out of hundreds of zones, only a handful have truly changed the regions around them. So who's actually fixing this? And who's building the infrastructure that the global supply chain actually demands? I've made videos about how conglomerates built entire cities, malls, offices, condos, even their own infrastructure. But I've yet to see one that is truly trying to build a middle class, not just another township full of empty condos. Ayala Land Logistics Holdings is the electronics king with Laguna Technopark. They're the primary gateway for the global electronics supply chain. Philinvest Land is the new tech challenger. They're behind Philinvest Innovation Park in New Clark City. They're the ones to watch for next generation manufacturing and green energy and tech. The big heavyweights aren't building empty condos and townships anymore. They're building private economic estates. Think of them as sort of like smart cities engineered exclusively for heavy industries. Aboitiz Infra Capital is leading this charge, and their crown jewel is Lima Estate. On paper, it looks like the Philippines underdog story we've been waiting for. The question is Lima really a game changer? Or is it just another developer with good marketing? Today was just a macro view, but next week, we're going to be stripping this story down to the ground level. And we're taking you entirely inside Lima Estate to show you exactly how private capital is solving the Philippines' biggest economic failures. And if you want to know where the smart money is moving over the next few decades, you can't afford to miss this documentary. So hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification, and I'll see you in the next video.